Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Coast to Coast. This is your host, Joe Dellera, and I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Andrew O'Connor Watts. Andrew, how are you doing today? The NBA playoffs are in full effect, but also at the same time, we're starting to almost get an off day.
Yeah, I know. It's so bittersweet at this time in the playoffs because each series heats up, but you get less and less basketball. So yeah, you got to adjust. I mean, it's nice. I'm getting to hang out with my loved ones more, which is that's a shift. That's a new one.
Yeah, I mean,
Compared to the
speaking of
last couple
loved
of
ones,
weeks.
I got my son over here. He's got Miss Rachel on the side. So if you catch some of the songs, which you might just over on the mic, then that's what it is. It's not it's not just for me.
Yep.
But yeah, so it's been a good a really fascinating second round. Obviously, we have the Minnesota Timberwolves advanced, and the Indiana Pacers advanced as well. Which series were you more impressed with, or so to speak, out of the ones that have advanced so far?
I think I have to pick the Pacers because that one just took me by surprise the most. I definitely was in the camp of these guys are good. Don't sleep on the Pacers. That said, I was so high on the Cavs that I had them, kind of every which way. Luckily, I took a long shot on Pacers to win the East a while back. But so relatively covered, but I had a lot of investment in Cleveland for championships, for the East, all that kind of stuff. So and it's tough to tell how much of that was injury, honestly. I think a lot of people are kind of calling out the Cavs for not performing to the level of their whatever 64 wins or whatever it was. How many do you know what they were at? Something like that.
I can tell you it was over 60 wins though.
Yeah. So I mean, we didn't get Darius Garland for game 1, 64.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't think that their 5-game gentleman's sweep to the Pacers bad, right? Maybe they're a little worse than we thought, but there were so many games where they were missing guys. Game 2, they didn't have Hunter, Mobley, or Garland, and then we literally saw Donovan Mitchell put on a monster performance and just completely run out of gas down the stretch. So you saw the residuals of that, I think, in later games as well. Just the Cleveland team in general not being 100%. So that said, not taking anything away from Indiana, they kept their foot on the gas and played great offense, and on it, even more surprising, some really solid defense, which is something that's been missing from them.
Yeah. I was pretty impressed with Indiana as well. I think at the end of the day, it's funny because Cleveland, they just seemed beat. They were exhausted a couple of games. And it's funny because we've joked amongst ourselves. I think I've joked on a couple different shows, but Donovan Mitchell was gassed. He played 35 minutes. And I get that there was nobody else on the team. Everybody else was hurt. The Pacers were basically face guarding him full court, glued to him. But still, it's not that's not that many minutes. You expect these star players in these games to play at least 40, if not 45 minutes, in some of these games, especially as the playoffs get to be more and more competitive, a little bit more of a grind, a little bit more of as you advance through the playoffs, right? The margins are so thin that you need those extra couple minutes. And, you gotta play. Maybe you gotta practice playing 40 to play 40. So is all I gotta say. So
spoken like a true Knicks fan, huh?
Exactly. So before we dive into tonight's game, what is your bold prediction, I guess, for the rest of the playoffs, or at least for the conference semifinals?
Man, all right. I hate to say it, but if we're going bold, I think this could be a 7-game series for the Knicks and Celtics.
Okay.
And honestly, I don't think it's in the bag for the Knicks either. I think I was pretty concerned with some of the stuff I saw in game whatever that was, 5, was it?
5, yeah.
Yeah. So look, I think without, everyone's talking about Ewing theory for Jason Tatum, the guy who coined the phrase. His favorite player is kind of, the largest, the biggest suspect in that hypothesis at the moment. So, but I don't, I think it's more that the offense functions differently without Jason Tatum. I mean, if we look at Game 4, I thought Jason Tatum was the only person keeping them in that game, and they were up 10 at half. I think that easily could have been like a 20-point win for the Knicks if Jason Tatum doesn't drop whatever, 43 or whatever it ended up being. He had an incredible game before he injured himself. And I mean, what we saw in the most recent game 5, Jaylen Brown had it again. Props to Jaylen Brown.
Yeah.
For playing as well as he did. 12 career high 12 assists. The ball was, the offense was just kind of in motion in a way that it wasn't with Tatum, where it can kind of get stuck, and he kind of relies on that ISO ball a little bit more than maybe he should.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of changed the defensive scheme for the Knicks, where you want to switch against Boston because they don't really hunt mismatches. And, so I think without Tatum, basically the reason that works is because Tatum, the person who is the most capable of exploiting mismatches, doesn't take advantage of them, in my opinion. He settles for these like long range kind of fadeaway jumpers. And without him in there, like, that ball movement and that switching, going under screens, like, I think that allows for more cleaner 3-point looks. And I don't know, it's concerning for me. Tibbs didn't do anything in the third quarter to stop that run.
Yeah,
he's back to his Tibbsy ways. Like, and then he called a timeout and didn't even sub anyone out. Kept the same lineup going. Yeah. When we've seen that starting lineup, as much as they're talented, that it has not worked in the playoffs. Like, Mitch has been the guy that's been a difference maker. Deuce, now that he's making shots, is really impactful. I don't know. He went with Campaign for too long. How I feel about that. What were your thoughts on the most recent game or on this series in general with the Knicks and Celtics?
Yeah, I mean, look, Boston has shown throughout the course of the entire season that they were the better team. And like, realistically, you kind of have to look at it in a way and say, well, if Boston had maybe taken care of business in games 1 and 2, they're not in a position where Tatum gets hurt. It's just like a little butterfly effecty to kind of say that, but like maybe that is what happens. I don't know. I do think that New York came out and played okay to start the game, but then they were just flat after halftime. Like, it looked like they were a team that thought they were going to come out and blow their doors off, and they just didn't do it.
Yeah.
Additionally, Cornette was awesome for the Celtics. At the same time, like, Cornette has to play in a drop. He's not switching. Kristaps Porzingis is hurt, or sick, whatever. I think, like, you got to play Mitchell Robinson. Like, you have to play him, because you can't expend those fouls in the hack a Mitch thing, because you need Cornette to play. So because of that combination, I think that you need to get Mitchell Robinson. I don't know if you need to start him, but he definitely needs to be playing a little, like, some more meaningful minutes. Do you see him do the night Selly after he went 6 for 6 from the free throw line? Like,
incredible, dude.
Unbelievable. So
yeah.
I think that you need a little bit more Mitchell Robinson. And honestly, if they're gonna play Cornette, like, you gotta stretch the floor. You gotta let, like, I don't know what's up with Cat's hand, but Cat needs to shoot the ball from beyond the arc. It's not like he hasn't entirely. Like, it's weird because he'll take like a 40-foot pull up, but then he can't get open on the 3-point line. So I don't know what's going on there with him, but like, obviously the thumb, I think, seems to be bothering him, but New York should be able to take care of business. I think if I'm looking at it from like a player prop perspective, I'm probably going to want some Peyton Pritchard. I'm going to want some Derek White. I think that's the way to go, honestly, in this game, in this series. And then Mitchell Robinson free throws, like, he's going to get there again. I think I think they're just going to keep doing it. So I think his makes are at over 1.5. So I'll probably be on that.
Do you think so, though? Because it seemed like they kind of went away from him, like fouling him once he went 6 for 6 like that. Maybe they just say, okay, go 6 for 6 again. But
yeah, I think it's like a game by game thing. I think last game they were like, oh no, he's just making them today. Like, it's kind of like a heat check thing. It's like once he started making them, they're like, all right, we're just not going to do that. But I think you do it every time. If he's just completely missing or airballing, then like great. Now you're in a situation where you can do that again. So that's kind of what my thought would be. Do you think that Boston, like I guess this is the way to put it. It wouldn't be totally shocking if Boston is able to win in game 6. But is that what you're betting? Like, are you betting Boston to make it to game 6? Or do you think that you would want to be on New York? Or like, I kind of like the under, but I'm not the best totals guy.
I mean, I wish I could advise you. I've been terrible on totals in the postseason, so I wish I could be like, let me show you the ways. But I lean towards New York in game 6. If I'm like looking at my projections here, I have it minus 3.7, minus 5 in some instances. There's only one of my, but one of my projections. Let's see, one of my projections does have Celtics a little bit in the mix, but it's not enough. Wouldn't be enough to bet Celtics. I could only really look to New York here, but it's one of those things where it kind of feels like both teams, to both of their personalities, like if this went longer than it should, right? Celtics overperforming when they're kind of being counted out, and the Knicks underperforming when they kind of have it in the bag, so to speak. So, I mean, we kind of saw it with Pacers last year. Now that was injury related. Like, I don't think the Knicks are, I think they are a really gritty, like, tough team. But I think that like Missoula, again, I still think Missoula is a better coach than Tibbs. And I think that he could, kind of scheme his way into another win. I do think it'll be tough for them to get, essentially what'll be 3 in a row if it does get to 7. But I will probably be on, long story short, I will probably be on the Knicks, but I won't be like I've been betting 1.5 units on a lot of these playoff plays. This will probably be closer to like a 1 unit play for me if I do bet New York.
Fair enough. All right, so let's talk about the one game on the slate today. Give you some best bets and then get you out of there. We've got the Oklahoma City Thunder against the Denver Nuggets. Jamal Murray popped on the injury report as questionable due to an illness a little bit earlier today. Hate to see the midday downgrades. It's always those almost, especially in the regular season, they basically are always a precursor to the player being out. Now it's the playoffs. I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit different in this instance. I would imagine that it's probably a little bit different. The spread has been floating around. I think it's a 5.5 right now. What do you think about this game? Do you have an initial thought? Can Denver force a game 7?
I want to say that they can. I want to. That's what my heart wants. I'm going to be going and meeting up with a couple of my buddies who are from Denver, and we're going to be watching the game out and about in the world, and I'm going to be rooting for the Denver Nuggets to win the game. However, based on what I've seen the last couple games, based on what my projections have this at, I have to go with OKC here. There's a couple reasons outside of just my numbers, which are, use full season long data. They use playoff specific data, recent data from last 5 games. I have a lot of triangulation points that I use, but really, I mean, if you look at last game and really since game 2, OKC has done an incredible job on Jokic. Like, I think we've kind of looked, a lot of people have kind of phrased it as like, he's having a rough series. And it's like, well, OKC is forcing him into a rough series. They're putting game 1, they put Chet on him, and Jokic just absolutely annihilated him. I think he had 40 plus. I can't remember the exact number. He had that. I think that was the 40-20 game. But since then they've put Ihart on him, Isaiah Hartenstein, and kind of had Chet as the roamer, which I don't know why they didn't do that to begin with. Because if you watch the Wolves series, that was exactly what they did in the Wolves series. Put the big body on Jokic and have the roaming big to swat shots and bother him. But they're just sending help from everywhere though. And this is another part of it, is they're sending help from all over, from the perimeter, just to muck up Jokic in the paint, because that's obviously where he does the best. So they're kind of forcing him to kick out to shooters, and they're not able to get anything going from deep. That hasn't been their identity all season. They've been the lowest the lowest 3-point rate in the league. Now, Yeah. So I think this is kind of OKC using their depth and their scheming to kind of outmatch a Denver team that is really short on talent when you get past the top three guys or so. Um, so I like -4.5 I like it at 5.5 too. Honestly, there's probably not a number it'll get to that I won't like it at, even with Murray out or in, because it'll probably move
Yeah.
accordingly. So yeah, the one stat I want to mention though, one trend is the road teams up 3-2 in game 6,
Oh,
which
it's
is
brutal.
yeah, exactly. 66 and 34 ATS, 29% ROI, and it's 2-0 this season. So yeah, not looking great for Denver. Like I said, I'll be rooting for them with my buddies, but I've got money on the other side here. But yeah, do you have anything in this game that you like, or
Yeah,
you
so
laying
I
low?
mean, my lean on the game was Denver. I think that the series just goes 7.
Hell yeah.
This is like the one spot where I think they have a little bit of an edge being at home. I think it's a real home court advantage. Um,
Hmm.
talk talk to me about the side for a second longer.
Yeah, of course. Well, why don't I go to so for why don't I go? I'm going to go to a different play that I kind of like, kind of regardless of Jamal Murray being in or out, and it's Russell Westbrook over 3.5 assists. So this is a play that popped on our Rithmm prop model, and as I dug into it a little more, I really like it just based on my kind of own investigation. So this is 78% against OKC, pretty much going back to 2021. Now, I don't really care too much about data before he was on the Nuggets because obviously the way he's being used is different, but still, it's not for nothing that he does well against this team, I think. So, his minutes are actually down in the regular season in the playoffs, but his still getting about 24 minutes per game in the playoffs and this series. So, and in that time frame, like in the playoffs, he's averaging 4.2. His line at 3.5, right? That's like not the hugest margin. But if we look at the season long numbers, when he's playing 24 or more minutes, he averages 6.3 assists per game. And he has missed this in the last 2 games, but I think that's kind of why we're, getting a 3.5 and not like, a higher number closer to his average, 4.5 or something like that. I think it's a little bit discounted because he's missed the last 2 games. But if you don't count those last 2 games, he's hit this in 7 of his last 8. Um, I think there's a good chance that we'll see a little bit more Russ down the stretch. He played Michael Porter Jr. in crunch time, despite Mike basically having nothing going from deep. Um, a lot of folks in the Denver media kind of criticizing him for not going with Russ down the stretch. So I think there's a good chance that we see him play more in crunch time, more opportunities to get, if he's close to this, get another assist to send us over. But also, and that's all of this analysis that I'm telling you is if Jamal Murray plays. If Jamal Murray doesn't play, this is an absolute smash, in my opinion.
100%.
He,
Yeah.
yeah, he gets 3.72% bump and assist rate without Jamal, and he's over this line in every single game this season, averaging 8.5 assists per game without him. If Jamal's out, I think triple double watch might be in effect as well. But I'm going to hold off on that until I get word about Jamal. But I did take 3.5 assists already.
Yeah, I don't mind jumping in on that early, given just the upside if Jamal Murray is indeed out. For
Mm-hmm.
me, I'm actually on Michael Porter Jr. over. I grabbed 14.5 PR. A lot of it has to do with he got a lidocaine shot, but he can't get it every game. So he's
Mm-hmm.
pretty open and transparent about it. He got it before game 3 because he thought that was a super important game. Dude went absolutely bonkers. Got it before game 7 against the Clippers, went off. And then like we see this like precipitous drop off. Given the fact that game 3 was about a week ago, and if they lose, they go home. Like it's over. So I think this is the game. Like I don't have any real information. I'm taking a little bit of a stab. I also think 14.5 is a low enough number that even if he didn't, he could still go over. Players, like a lot of these players, they shoot better at home. They're a little bit more comfortable. So I did go that route with Michael Porter Jr. And for me, the other play that I looked at was I like Jokic over. I grabbed 35.5 PA. I think it's a low number relative to his full season numbers. However, it's obviously a little bit different here. The biggest thing is I felt that Jokic was out of rhythm throughout this entire series because of the way that they were guarding him with Chet and Hartenstein really after game one. I think he kind of figured it out a little bit. He went 17 of 25 from the field last game, and his teammates shot literally as badly as they could. I think it was like a record. They only converted 5 of his 20 potential assists. So with the Nuggets at home, I think a couple more of those fall, and I think that this is a good spot. So I think it's a really good spot for Jokic. He can go over just on his points alone. And if Murray's out, I think that even like further strengthens the fact that he needs to not only run the offense, but he's going to be a primary scorer as well. So I like it a lot. But I don't necessarily have any answers for you on lidocaine versus Toradol, but let's ask Chat GPT real quick. I personally like lidocaine, but I usually go with the patches. I'm more of a salon pause type of guy. So they're both medications for pain management. This is stuff that you never know. We're not doctors, but we are going to talk about it here. Lidocaine, a little bit of a local anesthetic. Toradol is an NSAID, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug. So I think that they are a little bit different. The main thing is that lidocaine targets localized pain and numbing, whereas Toradol addresses systemic pain and inflammation. So really interesting type of thing. Lidocaine is specific for like short term, whereas Toradol is limited to about 5 days because there's some really rough side effects. So bet you didn't think that you were going to get that here coming on Coast to Coast, but I got you. Don't worry.
Yeah. Question is lidocaine or Toradol what that Wolves fan was using on the Jumbotron the other day?
I think that might have been what it was.
All right. Yeah. Just wasn't sure.
So we had to get you in with that. So at the end of the day, though, I hope we get a game 7. But if there are, so let's put it this way. If there are game 7s, I think one of the important things to kind of take away from that is if we do have some game 7s, teams coming off of a game 7, because at this point we know that the other side of the bracket is set. The Wolves advanced and the Pacers advanced. Then they didn't go to a game 7. If these two series go to game 7, we're going to probably want to be on the Wolves and the Pacers in a game 1 against the spread, just based off of what the numbers are historically. It's like over 60% cover rate for the team with the rest advantage against a team coming off of a game 7. Do you have any thoughts on that trend at all? Like a little bit from a general perspective, or, maybe is it a spot that you might not care about entirely in this playoffs?
It's funny because we actually had that trend coming out of round 1, and both times it did not hit. We saw the Warriors coming off of game 7 and the Nuggets coming off of game 7. Both of them won in game 1. So all right. The question is like, is that even more reason to like it in this next round? I kind of lean towards that because not only do you have the attrition of multiple rounds now. So in the case of let's say the Nuggets make it, especially, I think if the Nuggets get to push it to a game 7 and somehow win the series, I think absolutely you hammer Wolves in game 1.
Yeah.
Even though we saw them, win off in the round 2 game. I mean, now we're talking about 2 game 7s in a row, right? Yeah. So that to me is way different. I think with the Thunder, I would be less inclined to fade the Thunder coming off that game 7. They had a long rest before this series. They're the deepest team probably in the league. Maybe not. Maybe the Pacers actually, but one of the deepest teams in the league. So I think it's definitely dependent on the opponent. But I do like it for that side of the bracket. If it's Pacers versus whoever comes out of this, I like the Pacers in game 1.
All right, fair enough. So you heard it here first. Andrew hates the Knicks. But to recap, so I'm going to be on Jokic over 35.5 PA. and Michael Porter Jr. over 14.5 PR. And for tomorrow, I'm going to be looking at some Derek White and Peyton Pritchard stuff. And Andrew, what are you on today?
I'm on OKC -4.5. Russell Westbrook over 3.5 assists and triple double for Westbrook if Jamal Murray is out. And for tomorrow, I don't hate any of those prop angles you mentioned, but I will probably most likely be on our New York Knickerbockers to close it out in Game 6.
Hell yeah. So guys, be sure to like, subscribe. This really helps us out, helps us continue to bring this content to you. Also, for the WNBA fans out there,
Yeah.
you guys know that both Andrew and I both cover some of the WNBA. I've got a prop out in the huddle as well, like already. So that's sick. But Rithmm has some really awesome tools for WNBA. It helps you with sides, totals, money lines, etc. And like I know a lot of you guys are absolute degenerates and don't know what you're doing, but you want a little bit of action. So at least do it with an informed perspective and use the tools that we have at Rithmm. They're made by people that are smarter than probably Andrew and I put together. And it's super helpful for you guys. You can get it at your fingertips, whether it's on the computer or in your phone, because like, why not just switch between apps? Just go from Rithmm right to one of the sports books, call it a day and make some money.
Boom.
So it's going to be awesome. I'm really glad that you guys joined us. For Andrew O'Connor Watts, I'm Joe Dellera, and thank you for joining this episode of Coast to Coast.